we go. What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman. And with me today, we've got the bad guy himself of moto journalism, Mr. Chris Cooksey. How we doing, brother?
Nick, what's up, dude? We've been trying to plan this for a while. We just haven't made it happen.
I think it's been like a year, actually. We started this like a year ago, and I kind of just let it go. And anyways, man, I really enjoy your content. Like I think that you're one of, if not the best journalist in this sport. And I really enjoy your content. So I wanted to get you on here and find out a little more about you. And so let's start from the beginning. Let's go first bike, first race, first win. And go ahead and expand on those as much or as little as you like.
Dang, we're going way back.
Yeah, we're starting it off.
My first bike was a little tote goat. Remember the Honda 50s with like the big metal gas tank? Yeah. I remember I have a picture of me riding it with like a tank top and an open face helmet with a little Jofa hook. First race, I was on a Suzuki 50. And I rode into a ditch because my dad told me to go faster, but there was a turn coming up and I hit the gas anyway. So we held off racing a little while after that. My brother raced, I trail rode. And then first win, gosh, honestly, I don't remember.
Me neither. I can't remember mine either.
Yeah.
And I didn't have many of them. I wasn't a great amateur racer. So they were few and far between. Yeah, man.
Yeah, you're from Idaho. So do you remember Bonneville Raceway?
Oh, yeah. I'm actually from Northern California, and I lived in Temecula for like 5 years and raced and did the whole deal down there. I grew up like in Northern California. I was a trail rider. We did trail riding until I was like 15, and then I jumped onto a local motocross track, broke my shoulder, and was hooked.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
We just keep going. Injuries, It is what it is. But yeah, Bonneville Raceway was a little track in Utah. And my dad finally took us out there. And I do remember when they split up, it was all 80 novice. They split us up to 7 11 and 12 to 15. And since I had an older brother, I'm always chasing him. So I won the 7 to 11 class. So that worked.
Yeah. The first like real memory of motocross I have is like, I know I did this like little fair track a couple times. I broke my shoulder, got all hooked, but we went out to Hangtown one time. And you know, when you've never been on a real track before and you get thrown on Hangtown, it's like the coolest freaking thing ever. Now it's like the worst track ever aside from this year. But dude, I gave myself heat stroke. I was out there all day just hammering laps. And I remember riding back in the back of my buddy's dad's pickup, just yakking the whole time, show it back home. I'm like, we're going back next weekend, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's once you start, that's part of it. It becomes your life.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask what happened to the arm?
Yeah, I usually tell people beforehand just so they're not like staring at it and wondering. I got into doing line work. I was actually a drug addict. Moto's rough on people when you get out. Like I never planned on taking moto as far as I did. I kind of moved to Temecula when I graduated high school because I liked the area. I'd been down there and I just wanted to have fun, like go and get a job and just kind of do life. And I started riding more when I got down there, and I was a really great rider. I had a lot of talent. I just wasn't a great racer, and a lot of that had to do with my body. Like, I just wasn't strong enough. I wasn't big enough, and I couldn't handle the bike. So I moved down there and just started working out to pick up chicks. And then all of a sudden, I'm in the A class racing, and it's like, well, now we're going to Washougal this year, and you're doing the whole thing, and it's just, it gets out of control fast. So when I got done with it, like most people, I needed something to fill that void, that is just, consumed me for my entire, teenage and adult life. And drugs was that thing for me. And it took me a long time to get off drugs, like 2, 3, 4 years, something like that. And I got clean. I moved to San Francisco and I got a great job working at a bar. I was a bartender. And I decided that I wasn't going to be young and good looking forever, so I couldn't stay behind the bar. And I went into line work like my dad did. And I went to Northwest Lineman College and did well there and got a job working in North Dakota and got electrocuted working on 14,400 volts.
Dang, that sucks, man. That's a bummer.
Yeah, they called it a catastrophic unsurvivable injury. So I attribute my survival to moto 100%. Like when that happened to me, I think most normal people would probably just go into shock and die. Because holy crap, I just got electrocuted. Like, this is bad news. But for me, it was like, dude, I've been hurt before. I've been to they send you to the hospital, they cast you up, and you're back out on the bike again, and everything's good. So for me, I was like begging my boss not to fire me, essentially, for making a mistake. And I never even considered the fact that I was going to die or that I could lose a hand. It was kind of the first time in my life where I had to like look at mortality. We tend to think ourselves invincible for a good portion of our lives until something happens. Maybe it's to someone around us or to ourselves, where you're just like, holy crap, this thing that I've been doing is a whole lot more dangerous than I actually give it credit for.
Yeah, we're definitely desensitized. It's funny, I took my kid to the BMX track, and a kid broke his collarbone, and they like shut it down, and like it was just, I'm like, wait, really? I'm like, we're used to guys like with their legs twisted around, or as long as it's not paralysis, we're all good. We just move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird.
So one of the things I did actually want to talk to you about is when I did this whole injury thing, I went to workers' comp, the whole deal, and they decided to retrain me. And the retraining that they thought was best for me was to go and get a business degree at our local community college. And I know that you also were a business major and you went to community college. Now, or maybe it was a state college. I could have got that wrong. But was that
ASU might as well be. I'm just kidding.
Sure. So was that something that you proactively did? Like, I need to do this to improve my way of life? Or was it something that you did before? Like, how did that happen?
I was racing pro locally in Utah, working at a bike shop, and I think I was 22, 23 years old, and a local pro came in. He's living with his girlfriend's parents in her basement. He's stoned out of his head. He's got no money. He's like kind of begging for a bike. I'm like, holy crap. If I continue this path, that's where I will be. So I called my buddy who was in Arizona. I said, you know what, dude, what are you doing? Like, I got to do something else. I don't want to wind up some broke, injured motocrosser with no education. So I sold my bikes, moved out to Arizona, and just buckled down on the college thing.
Yeah. Was journalism always the goal?
No, I actually kind of backed into that one. It was always business communications. I was always in, ad sales and different stuff like that. But I knew I wanted to get back into the motorcycle industry. I knew I wanted to be a rep. So I worked for Tucker Rocky for 10 years. I worked for Western Power Sports. And the journalism thing, I mean, I had taken some classes, but most of my communications was based on like human communications and body language and stuff like that, because I like it for sales.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to listen to people and read people. And I just thought, man, maybe I should just do this, mess around. And Thumper Talk, do you remember that website?
Yeah, I do.
They were one of my customers as a rep. And I said, hey, do you care if I get a press pass under your guys and just go play around with it? And it's just kind of steamrolled from there. And I really originally did it because I had a fear of public speaking. And I was like, okay, well, this will really help me if I can get out there and force myself to be uncomfortable. And yeah, lo and behold, it worked.
Yeah. And, like I kind of fell into that same thing. I got in a lot of trouble when I was in high school, and I had to go around and do a lot of public speaking, and I wasn't great at it, and I got in trouble with like a group of 7 guys, and I was the only one that could fit that role. And it was interesting to kind of go through and have different crowds and see how different people react in different ways. And when I later became a bartender and a waiter at a restaurant, like, those skills were already ingrained in me. And I think one of the great things about motocross is when you're a racer, like, you're around adults, and you have to be able to communicate with adults in order to be a great racer. And out of all of the sports that I've played, in football, you've got one coach, but he's the boss. He's the Lord. You do what he says. Like, there's not really much communication going on there. It's more of a one-way communication, where in moto, like, we're expected to get our sponsorships ourselves. And how do you do that? You have to communicate with these sponsors. And so I was wondering, do you think that the school helped you, even though this wasn't a direction that you were, like, the things that you learned about communication, body language, do you think that those things help you now?
Absolutely, 100%. A lot of those skills. And it was funny, when I went to college, I worked as a limo driver. I probably got more real life education as a limo driver than I did in college, but it just, it was just one of those things I added. And here's the thing about motocross kids. I was pretty good. I was one of the top kids in Utah. I rode with like Ezra Lusk, Damon Huff. I was planning on being a professional racer.
Mm-hmm.
And when that doesn't work out, it's weird how people treat you different. When your whole identity is motocross and then you have some serious injuries and people write you off, it is devastating to the psyche, to the ego. And, it takes almost a whole reprogramming. And I had to learn how to function. I had been able to coast off of everything. I got through high school. I could barely read. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. When I got to college, I remember one of the teachers sat me down and said, listen, you need to go to the writing center. You're at a 6th grade level. And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
But I did. I mean, I did the work, but at the same time, it was like I got through because, people just said, oh, well, he's gonna be a racer. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And that happens to a lot of these kids. And I think a lot of these kids, when they're done and they don't have those skills, there's some that do, but a lot of them don't, because people do let them slide because they do have this one talent, but that one talent won't last forever. It has a sell by date.
Yeah, and just look at the YouTube comments on your channel. I mean, the grammar is atrocious. Like, these people just really never learned. I never learned how to write either. So like, when I went to school, back it up a little bit. When I got hurt, I needed like an avenue to express myself in some way. I was sitting around in this house by myself. I got divorced right after I got injured, and I needed some sort of outlet, and I started writing. And I realized very quickly that, like, I always knew I was a good writer as far as content goes. As far as like getting my thoughts down, like I have a way that I can structure things, but the grammar was just so awful that nobody would even read it. Like, you couldn't put a short story or a blog in front of somebody that would pass. They would just not even read it. It's crumple it up, throw it away. It's just like a teacher not having your name on the thing. And one of the things, like, I felt that college was a hindrance in a lot of ways. I don't feel like I learned much at all. In fact, like, one of the things that drove me nuts about it is I think that they're training the next level managers. So like, my community college, the main campus shares a parking lot with a Walmart. So my joke was, it's like, hey, they're training the new manager right across the street, and there's no entrepreneurial, activities go. Like, they don't want entrepreneurs at all. So it's interesting that you were able to kind of take this abstract thing and use it, where like I was able to do the same thing. Not that I learned a lot in college, but the repetition of all the crap that I had to write, it just finally like made me get it together. And now I've got ChatGPT, so I didn't need to learn any of it.
I know it's not fair, but you can spot ChatGPT and these
Oh, yeah.
AI things. They look silly and they say some dumb stuff. But I mean,
Great editor though.
yeah, yes,
It is a great editor.
I use Grammarly. I really like Grammarly, and as much as I practice, I still make a ton of mistakes. The English language is not hard, but I realized quickly too with emails and stuff. I'm like, okay, that whole coasting by, I'm not going to be able to fake it when everyone's texting and emailing and stuff. I'm going to get busted. So I need to figure this thing out. So that's where I buckled down. That's probably one of the bigger things I got out of college. That, and it just, I don't know. I never really thought, like, you don't think motocross kids are mostly considered and told they're dumb, because
They are.
a lot of them are, because they just, and for me to go and finish college, it kind of like, okay, I'm not stupid. I can actually function with regular society, and I can be just as competitive as I need to be.
And to me, when I got out of it, I was going into it thinking this is going to be hard. This is for smarter people than me. And that was absolutely not the case. The whole thing was set up to run at the pace of the slowest kid, and the slowest kid is very, very slow. And if they don't pass those kids, the whole thing falls apart. So you have all these loans going out to these kids who shouldn't be going to college in the first place, and you have to pass them to keep the Ponzi scheme going. And we're just destroying the lives of our youth. When I talk to younger kids who are kind of, when I go out to the track or whatever, and you see these kids who are in these positions like you were in, like I was in, which no direction. I didn't have any positive male role models around me, older male role models. Like, I was around younger guys, and I didn't, the ones that I did have around me, Craig Wessner and Kelly Yancey, I didn't listen to them, and it just turned to shit. So I like to tell people now, like, even though I got hurt in Northwest Lineman College, I think that's a great job. I don't think that all these moto kids should be going to college. My little brother is a very, very gifted hockey player, and I think it's possible that he could get a scholarship. And I say, hey, dude, you go and you be an engineer. You get a job as an electrical engineer. You get a good job when you get out, and maybe you can do something in moto, But if you go and waste your time doing all, I'm going to, get a history, whatever the bullshit is, just don't waste your time and go to the line college. There was actually a
Yeah,
couple of
see,
guys who raced Southwick the other day who were linemen. He's like, oh yeah, I don't remember his name. He's like, oh yeah, I'm a lineman now, but you make enough money doing that job where you can still ride. Back when I was in that position, you couldn't really ride anymore after like 20, and we're similar in age. Like if you were 25 and you didn't have it, you're done. Like no one was looking at you. And now it's kind of a different area.
which it's always been broken in my opinion. I never understood why every other sport in the world, your athletic prime is 25 to 35, but they wrote off motocrossers at 23, 24. I'm like, I never understood that. And I didn't think it was right. And I think now time is actually catching up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more about opportunity. It's the teams. You just have to change their mentality so they know, okay, you know what? Let's not pull that kid out of amateurs and give him 2 years and then just write him off. Let's take a look at that kid that's been there for 3-4 years, like a time master pool, and he's developing his man strength, and now he can win. Like
Yeah.
why? Not everybody's a phenom. We do get a couple. We got James Stewart, Carmichael, Jet, Deegan, but not everybody. But that doesn't mean they can't have successful careers. I mean, look how many NFL quarterbacks sit for a couple of years and then become great,
Yeah.
or rode the bench for a couple of years, or changed teams before they got great. There's no one blueprint.
Yeah. And like for me, it was the body. Like I wasn't physically able to compete with those guys until I was 22, 23 years old. I just didn't have that body style. And like if you look at Tom Brady's draft, or not his draft, the combine picture, that guy was not ready for the NFL. But by the time he got in there and Drew Bledsoe got hurt, the dude was ready, and he was ready to take, control of that opportunity that was handed to him.
And he was able to learn something. And this is what I got out of college is, even though you might not be as smart as somebody, you can always outwork them. And that's something that not a lot of people understand. Oh, well, that person's just better than me. Well, okay, well, if they're better than me, I remember I sucked at math, but I was like, my buddy was really good, and he'd go party, like, dude, why you gotta put? Because listen, I can get the same grade as you. I just have to work harder. And that's what I figured out. And I'm like, okay, so I can do pretty much whatever I want in life. I just have to keep grinding and make sure it works. And, you're not going to win at everything. You got to be able to take those losses, learn from them, and move forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, so let's talk Glen Helen a little bit. So one of the things that has really bothered me the most about this whole Glen Helen thing is the reaction from the media. Not you media, but like the under the umbrella of Racer X media, where they're kind of just putting it out as, oh, this is just stupid drama. This is stupid. I think stupid shit, somebody called it. And to me, like, that is such a slap in the face to Bud, who doesn't think this is stupid shit. Bud, like, guy who's put his blood, sweat, and tears into making the baddest track on the planet. Like,
No,
how
I
is
totally
this
agree.
stupid
So
shit?
it's not. And the thing is, people don't understand is Davey Coombs is really smart the way he's built this empire.
He's slick.
And I don't know if it was all planned or if it all worked. So what Davey did was, he first started off, his dad was a very successful promoter like Bud and some of these other guys. And, Davey was just that kid that ran around. So he started doing media, got the TV gig because, his dad had a lot of connections. So he was able to give him a lot of opportunities. Davey's a smart guy. So he starts the magazine, Racer X. He's having a lot of fun. Then he sees, where he could get. His dad unfortunately passed away. His dad was a great guy. The sport would look different if his dad didn't have that heart attack at 50, which, man, that's way too young and it sucks.
It's terrible.
But his dad created Loretta Lynn's to really groom, not to become the money machine that it is. I mean, Davey and his sister have done a great job at making money, but they haven't done what they claim that his dad had done it for in the beginning. And boy, he freaks out when I say that, but it's the truth. So his dad created the NPG, the National Promoters Group, which was all the tracks, right? And the tracks, they needed protection from the AMA because the AMA had the rights to the series. When the series went up for sale, the NPG got together, and this is according to Bud, they put up, I believe, $2 million. And since Davey and Kerry are sons of the founder of the NPG, they trusted them to go and place their bid. Now, it'll always be debated until the Daytona Motorsports Group ever comes out and tells us what happened, exactly how they got that. Davey comes out and tells Bud, oh, yeah, sorry, we didn't get it. But I struck a deal with MX Sports.
I got it.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we didn't get it. I got it.
Exactly, exactly. You're our group, so our group's gone. But guess what? I control all of it, and now I am acting. Now he gets to act as a franchisee to to like all the tracks. So all these tracks that were, essentially a group that were protected, now they have no protection. Davey as MX Sports can come in there, tell him whatever he wants, and they're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, they're pissed. And I don't know if you see how many national tracks that we've lost throughout the years
Mm-hmm.
because they look at that term sheet and how much money you have to pay. You have to, as a track, you have to put up all the risk. You do everything. Davey comes in and they have, he's got a little, like almost like a franchise platform where they come in and make it look really cool, but he charges you for all that. He charges for everything. And hypothetically, if you put all that up and the event rains and people don't show up and they don't sell tickets, Davey's not out. He still gets his money. It's the track. It's a really one-sided deal.
Yeah.
Bud recognized it and said, "Hey, I don't like this." They came to specific negotiations to where it got to within. It was the discretionary tickets was the final hurdle. Davey, with his media outlet, he's able to spin narratives and make it sound like and protect, the monopoly that he has. But it came down to money, and that's why I don't understand. Listen, it's about $100,000 difference or so, and they were selling these discretionary tickets. Davey tries to make it sound like they're going to flaggers and personnel. They're not. They're selling them from the MX Sports truck right next to the pits. Every single rider that goes in the pits has to pay for every one of their family members, and MX Sports sells those. That was the problem, not Bud's hard to deal with.
Yeah. And I think people don't really understand how crucial it is what he's done with the media. Where if we were talking about the NFL right now, this would be like if the NFL owned ESPN. Straight up.
100%, 100%.
So if you have a discrepancy on a Super Bowl contract, where are you going to go to find out about that discrepancy? ESPN. And what are they going to tell you? What they want you to hear. And look, I'm a capitalist. Yep. I'm all for making money, making business, running these races. Everybody should make money, but I am not a monopoly guy. And this is a pure monopoly. And it's unfortunate that the sport is so small, because there are, like, I would imagine if you went to, who's somebody with money? Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David's got money, and you go, hey, look, dude, you could own a serious stake of Supercross for a very little amount of money, right? He would take one look at that arrangement and go, no, we're not doing that. I'm not going to have the main media run cover for the guy who, no way. It's ridiculous.
And this entire business model is placed upon, we'll give these teams and manufacturers a showcase for their brands. So we will not have to pay the talent. So we have free talent because Honda, KTM, they all come in with their money. No rider gets rich off of entry, off of money. Like in football, you get it from tickets and the teams, they have a split. There is no split. There's $70,000 paid back at a national to, the top 80 riders that make the show. That's nothing. I mean, they all pay $265 to entry, but get this, the entry goes to MX Sports, not to the track who's responsible for that purse. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I told Davey, I said, why on earth don't you change this business plan? Back when he actually talked to me, I said, why don't you change this business plan to where you share profits with the teams and riders, so that hypothetically, if Honda pulled out, they still have money. So this thing, if Honda or KTM ever decides, hey, you know what, we sell more bikes just doing social media, we don't want to race anymore, this is gone. This whole thing's
gone.
It all
falls apart.
But if you build it off of it being an entertainment factor, and you actually, I'm not saying, and I'm a capitalist too, and that's what I was trying to tell Davey. I'm like, I'm protecting your sport. I'm protecting this industry that we all love, and you're just strangling it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not here trying to just cut your throat. I'm trying to help you. And this is just the idea that I have, that if you take better care of these people, you'll get more out of them. Show me one super successful company in the world who doesn't take good care of their employees.
They don't seem to understand that the riders are their product. It drives me nuts. The whole Austin Faulkner thing, as soon as that happened, right away, I had the same thought as you, wrestling mats. And you get, like in the comments, people running cover for Feld. Oh, it costs too much. Oh, the extra truck, all the extra dirt. And it's like, guys, invest in your product. And you know that they're not investing in it because the sport has been static for 30 years. The entire time that I've been in this sport, it has been completely static. They're making money, but we're not getting bigger. And this idea that like, we're going to run a national at your track, and that's going to be an advertisement for people to come to your track. You know who doesn't need that advertisement? Bud. Glen Helen is going to be Glen Helen no matter what. And the thought that all of these tracks have to have the same deal is ridiculous. How much more do you think Feld paid to run a race in San Francisco this year rather than Oakland? Double?
Yeah. But it's well, okay, so let's take a look at the UFC. Dana White gets a ton of heat for the lack of pay, but they have he invests so much money in those fighters promotion wise. What does Feld and what do MX Sports do to promote their teams and riders? Send out a few Instagram posts, have a really lame press conference
Shake
where
them
they
down
tell
for
them
entry fees?
Yes.
Pirate
and
shit?
well, and you can trash UFC or say the pay scale or whatever, but at least that sport has grown. And as that sport's grown, they have shared profits with the fighters. And on a side note, I live here in Vegas. Dana White takes really good of the fighter. Like he'll just see a fighter struggling that even not, I seen him do this. I happen to have a friend who's not in the UFC. He just give him money.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you're struggling. 10 grand cash, just
There's
slid
an
it
investment. And it's an investment. You know, when I was fucked up on drugs, my grandparents, luckily for me, made an investment to get me better. And that investment paid off, and they have told me straight up, that's the best investment we've ever made. You could find a guy like that who's just a grinder, who has nothing going for him and is just in the gym every day, grinding hard. And you go, you know what? If I gave this guy 10 grand, he could be the next Masvidal, you know? And maybe you're wrong, but maybe you're not. And like you said, what he does great is he gives these fighters an avenue to get endorsements, to make deals, to make real money. Hey, I'm not going to pay you a ton, but what I am going to do is I'm going to put a camera in your face and let you say whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. And that's great.
And that's it. Look at how much money Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal got on that stupid little boxing match. Do you think they would have ever been anything had the UFC not invested millions of dollars promoting these two guys? And I understand, yes, pay is the bottom line, but there are different ways, and I don't see anyone in our sport doing that. You know, and when they do, it's like, oh, it's just a little interview in Racer X. Let's control it all. Let's just hold it real tight because we don't want anything getting out that we're making money. And I don't care. I think the promoters genuinely deserve to make a truckload of money. I wish they made, NFL money, but I also wish our riders made NFL money too. Like, I feel like they need to grow together. And if one grows without the other, it collapses. And that's what I see happening right now.
And we're going to run into issues with like I said, I'm a capitalist. I think unions are commie shit and they're destructive. But at some point, like, something has to give when you're operating in a pure monopoly where there's zero competition to give the riders an avenue to like have any sort of leverage over them. Like the riders have zero leverage. Maybe the couple of the top Jets got some leverage, they can come in and say, knock this down or not, whatever. There's a little bit of leverage there. But once you get down out of the top 5, there's nothing. None of these guys can say or do anything to improve their situation with Feld.
No, and I'll tell you what, MX Sports is operating in a really gray area, and I think it's going to bite them. I've already heard about an antitrust lawsuit because when you operate like a franchise, there's certain laws to protect because you become a monopoly when you start acting like a franchise. There's a reason. I'm not a big federal government person, but there's a reason they have antitrust laws because you can't do certain things because we don't want too much power to go in certain places. You just can't have it.
And we're such a small sport. Like, every once in a while you get those like moments of realization of how small we are. I was watching this video the other day where a jockey at like a fair somewhere, just a fair race, he had basically a taser set up on the horse, and the dude got arrested for a felony. Like, and you go, yeah, that's probably right. Like, there's betting going on. Like, maybe not a felony, but like, yeah, something's got to give. Where like if you caught what happened with Deegan's bike last, 2 weeks ago, where it blew up before the sound check. Who really knows? But if they did have an ignite button on that thing, what's going to happen? Maybe a suspension, a fine, nothing real, because it doesn't matter.
Because here's the thing: you're not going to do anything to Deegan because the same
leverage.
Organization policing them is AMA Pro Racing is literally a branch of MX Sports. They're in the same, like, for a while when you emailed AMA Pro Racing, the officials had MX Sports emails. So Racer X, MX Sports, AMA Pro Racing, they're all real one organization.
Yeah.
And they try to act separate and they try to put off this thing. And that's why they try to control the narrative and they blame this and that,
Yeah.
but it's not.
And the narrative that drives me nuts with you is he's negative. Oh, he's so negative. He's just negative about everything. Being negative is like coming on and being, the riders suck, the tracks suck, the food sucked, the vendors sucked, everybody sucks. That's being negative. You are being critical because you love the sport. There is such a massive difference between being critical and a lot of times you have solutions for your critiques, which most people don't end up ever doing. But to me, it's just this. To me, when they say he's being negative, it's the same thing as like some Democrats saying he's being sexist or racist or, any of those anti-vaxxer. All it is just person I don't like and is causing me issues. So let's label them something.
And have you noticed it's almost like CNN when they say stuff about me, they use the same words over and over.
Yep.
And they even get guys like my old buddy to start repeating it. That's when I lost it on him last couple weeks. I'm like, come on, man, you know darn well. And the thing is I don't share information if I don't have it. And I got so mad at him, and I don't really want to talk about him too much because we kind of squashed it, but I want to tell.
Good.
He's seen the emails. Bud Feldkamp and Glen Helen had nobody to tell their story. I asked them, can I tell the story? They gave me access to email I saw the entire negotiations. I don't know if you saw the timeline that was on their website.
I did.
But there's a series of emails that go way in deeper. So I knew exactly, like, for people to say that I didn't have the information, I had all the information. I wasn't going to do that because I don't want to put them in it. I was surprised that, I was surprised he put the timeline up. I was like, dang. Because I've had that for a couple of years, and I talked about it, but then that's when Davey came out with all these different lies. He has a new excuse for everything. Bud's crazy, and Bud might be hard to deal with, but so what? So's Davey.
Yeah, right. Like you're a parent, right? Can you imagine if somebody spoke the way about your child that like they speak about this Glen Helen debacle? They make him seem like a crazy, retarded, just an out of control guy, and like that track is his baby. You can't, and like how disrespectful to say, hey, look, we want to come and have a party at your house, but we don't want you there. We're going to have a big rager. Everybody loves it. We love going to your house. It's great. Everybody loves going to your house. It's amazing, but we don't really like it when you're there. So why don't you just stay home while we have a fucking rager at your house this weekend?
I know. And okay, so Bud is so reasonable. He almost signed off on that. He almost let them have his track when he went on vacation to have the national. And then he's like, wait a second. I can't do that. That looks real bad. This is my track. I need to it's my national. And I'm going to just let these guys take over and push me out and have a party at my house when I'm gone. Yeah, it was, and I know Myron Short pretty well. Myron runs the Paula National, and I do feel like Myron kind of got shorted on that one. And when Bud backed out of that, he was like, he probably should have handled it a little bit better with Myron, but other than that, I don't see any issues.
You know what I'd love to see for the series? Like they have this, the playoffs. They're always talking about the playoffs. When do we have an actual playoff? Put Glen Helen as your opening round, and we can throw Paula in at the end. You make some Supercross sections in Paula. Maybe you do it like a section off the side of the track. You could do some Supercross sections. You start with 40 riders, then you trim it down to 30, go to another speedway, and then you go and do the more Supercrossy at the end with 20 guys. And you could actually have a playoff that way,
Yeah, you'll get no argument. I will say this. The name Motocross has to be the most unoriginal,
Dude.
stupid name I've ever heard.
Also,
But I do like what they're doing,
yeah,
and I love the single, double, triple points. I think it's fun, and I think everything about that has been a home run.
yeah.
They actually pay. They actually pay a little bit. Um, but if you're ever wondering if they have money, as soon as they had competition, they instantly coughed that up.
Dude, I wrote a satirical story on my blog called Ron Burgundy Calls Super Motocross. And it was years before they did it. I'll send it to you afterwards. It's stupid, but it's just like I used that because I had Ron being so ignorant that he didn't know what he was at. So he was super
Dude,
motocross.
the
And
fact that you satirically called it that before, and that's the name these idiots went with. I know, and they get so mad when I call it super duper.
yeah, oh, I'm sure they do. It's such a joke. It's such a joke. I
And the
would
thing
also
is there's
see.
actually
You know what I'd
there's
love to
actually a
see is
sport.
sorry. You know what I'd
Oh,
love to see is a wild card. You know, if all playoffs have wild cards, why don't we have a wild card and it could be a different race every year? And maybe don't make it worth very many points. I'd love to see you throw these guys on a 2-hour beach race in the middle of the season, or Red Bull Straight Rhythm, or just maybe a
okay.
GNC
So
style track. Let's throw something at these guys, you know?
Nick, here's the problem with that. You're it depends on what the teams want. If the teams
Yep.
want just to race, the teams get that because guess what? They do it for free. They are free employees, so they're not a part of it. They don't care if you get more fans because they get no more money. They just they don't work together, and that's why I was trying to tell Davey. If you change that model, you'll have these guys willing to do more because they get a piece.
Yep. Yep.
And like I said, I wasn't trying to
It's
be negative. I was trying to grow the
no,
whole thing.
and that's what bothers me about the negative term is you're not, and you're clearly not, and anybody who's unbiased about it should look at it and go, "Oh, he's being critical of a sport that he loves." That's what like could you imagine if Stephen A. Smith, if they just, oh, he's so negative, we can't even have him anymore. It's like, dude, the guy's the best. Like everybody loves Stephen A. And yeah, he's kind of out there and he's critical. Charles Barkley, the same way. Charles Barkley's going to give you what he thinks at the exact time. And if it's not if it doesn't support the narrative, too bad, because he's going to say it anyways.
Well, and I say a lot of things that are unpopular, and sometimes I go, "Wow, yeah, I was wrong." Like I didn't think Deegan was ready to go pro when he was, and boy, I feel like everything I say about Deegan, he just makes me eat my words. But
Right?
I love it. That kid is the best thing to happen to this sport in a long time.
I
He's
com-
he's the rider I never knew that we needed.
I completely agree. The kid's a
Actually,
badass.
I did know we needed him. I've been saying for so long, can we just get somebody up
Yeah.
there to just
You
screw
just
the
didn't know it
system,
was
say what he
him.
wants,
Yeah.
and he can back it up. No,
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I grew up around Brian and racing, and I've just never liked him. And I think
I
I
didn't
let my
either.
personal feelings towards Brian swayed how I felt about. And I don't. They'll probably never like me personally, and
Yeah.
vice versa. But that kid is awesome. He has got the dog in him. And anyone who says it's just because he gets, had all these things given to him, so did Evan Ferry. So
Yeah.
did a lot of kids. They don't have what he has. He
Chad's
has that
kid isn't
special.
that good. Chad's kid doesn't look like him, you know? Chad's kid's pretty fast, but he don't look like Deegan. You know what I mean?
But
and you know,
I don't think you'll know until later when you
don't.
find out if they had that dog in them.
Yeah. And for me, like, again, I always look at the body because I didn't have the body for the racer. Deegan, he's a big stout kid, and that is going to serve him well going into the 450 class. You look at a Casey Cochran versus a Drew Adams. One of them is a boy, the other one is a man child. Like you're going to have different development lines with guys who are on different time scales and with their bodies.
You know what though, Nick? That's what I love about motocross.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one perfect way to ride a dirt bike. Your body style, some short guy, and everyone will think you need to be short. Next thing you know, you get a tall guy. All of a sudden, everyone think there's so many different ways to do it. You take a look at Jet and you take a look at Hayden, and they were trying to work with Hayden, saying, okay, if you're going to beat Jet, you're going to have to smooth out. No, if they do that, they will ruin him. You let him go with his wild style. That's who he is, and it's just there's no perfect way to do it. It's how the rider, and that's one thing they talk about setup, this and that. It's about comfort. When you feel comfortable on a bike, you're willing to take the risks because you know what it's going to do, even if it's not as good as the engineer says it could be. If you feel better about it, you will go faster.
Yeah, and I've said since his first race in the 450 class is his style, that dancing around like a ballerina, is going to work really great until it doesn't. until you got a guy like Sexton who is just physically able and willing to hold that thing on for a long time. I knew that he had an issue in San Francisco, Jet, when he came out in that first lap on the heat race and he just blitzed the whoops by everybody. And I think everybody collectively was like, holy shit, did that just happen? And he comes around the next lap and he tries it again and he's just off the side of the track. And I kind of had a feeling there. I go, the kid needs another 10 to 15 pounds of muscle before he's going to be able to really hold it on like some of these guys like Sexton or like Deegan is, and it's going to be interesting to see how he comes back from this injury. I think he could probably come back, and not lose a thing and maybe even be a little better. It's freaking crazy how good the kid is.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know that I necessarily agree with you on the muscle thing. I think
Good.
he's just fine. I think
Yeah.
when you add muscle, you lose cardio, and it's finding that balance, and everybody's body's a little bit different. You add muscle to some guys, they lose their endurance, and it's you just got to find that right balance. And I think it's more about choosing when to take risks. Where Sexton, I don't know how he does it, but that's his style. If you're used to doing that, then you can do it, and if you don't, then I don't know. And Jet does things on the bike that just, I mean, like in Supercross, when the guys, he'd lose like 5 bike lengths and then he just make it up in one turn. You're like, how did you do that?
Yeah. Even when he was playing around with Sexton this weekend, where, Sexton kind of went on, and you saw him there for a second go, oh, this isn't, I'm not letting this happen.
You mean at Southwick?
Yeah. And yeah. And he just kind of took off for a couple corners and kind of held him off. And then you just saw him go, you know what? I'm not going to do this today.
Yeah. Well, and it's very common too when he's nursing a shoulder injury. So you start compensating with other parts of your body, get the thumb. I just hope they don't rush him back just for SMX. I understand it's pretty big and everything, but you don't want to have him come out and have a string of injuries. Just let him heal up and come back next year.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'd love to go and watch him ride. I haven't got to see him ride in person yet. I was privileged to see Ricky do some incredible things at Washougal and at Hangtown and at Glen Helen. But I also got to see Kevin Windham put it to him at Glen Helen a couple times, or I mean at Washougal a couple times. And you just watch him and go, holy shit. Like he figured something out and the dude's just unbeatable. Like you would watch him at Washougal and it's like, this guy's incredible. And then Ricky'd come out and just smoke him the next weekend, and it's just like, fuck. How does that happen?
Well, and yeah, Wyndham was, and and that's like you look at Jet and Hayden. Like just because you do one doesn't mean the other. And I remember with Ricky, everybody said, "Oh, he rides out of control. He's gonna have the big one." The same things they're saying about Deegan. Yeah. And maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But he's proven he can take the big one. He's pretty damn durable.
Yeah, I mean, some guys. You watch Jet crash and you watch Hayden crash, and they crash gracefully. He's able to spin his body around like he's getting thrown, but also in that helicopter crash from Hayden's, he like landed on his feet and hands. I remember seeing Ricky do something like that at Washougal where he was going over a scrub jump. And I remember looking and he was holding, the only thing he had on the bike was his right hand and he was just wide open and he landed like on his feet essentially. And he was just right back on the bike again. And you go, God, most guys would just tumble and die from something like that. But these guys are so good, man. They even figure out how to crash good.
Yeah. It's crazy, and I see him and like the way Jet landed, like I can't even imagine how, I don't know the G-forces when he cased it at Hangtown, but like that would break a lot of people's legs. And it's amazing that those guys, they're some incredible athletes.
They are. I mean, I try to explain to my friends sometimes how great these guys are. I have a buddy who just bought a bike, his first bike. He bought one for him and his kid, and I'm kind of, showing him races and this and that. And it's they kind of watch it and they go, oh, that's cool. Oh, look at that. And then he goes out and rides a couple times and just calls me up out of nowhere. He's like, I just watched that, high point. And like, these guys are incredible. It's like, yeah, you have to get a little bit of a feel for it before you can really, when I lived in Southern California, I wanted to learn how to surf. When you watch it on TV, it looks so easy. They make it look so easy. And then you get out there in the water and it's so hard. And like, bowling is a bigger sport than racing. I've heard somebody say that recently, but there's a reason for that. Like a normal person can sit down and see, if this guy gets this strike, he wins $1 million. And they go, you know what? I've been bowling before. I know how hard it is to get a strike. Even if you're really good at it, it's going to be hard to get a strike. But when normal people watch our sport, there's no reference,
See, I disagree with you there. I think everybody's ridden a bicycle at some point. You can kind of relate. I don't think they focus on it enough as an event. And, they're really cool. Oh, this big jump.
Yeah.
They don't tell the stories. They don't tell like who slept with whose girlfriend, because that stuff happens with these guys too. Like, remember Roxanne and Webb? Webb's married to Roxanne's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, I know that stuff's kind of gossipy, but you need to know the stories. We got to have good guys. We got to have bad guys. We like our stuff, and you have to grab attention. To see somebody just do one of those cool things that Jet does, it's like sometimes the X Games bores me, because once you've seen a dude, well, the half pipe not, but some of the other, or the quarter pipe, but some of the stuff, it's like, okay, it's a backflip. I've seen it 800 times.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. But if you told me the story, okay, this guy's doing a backflip, he's coming back from an injury, and you gotta bring me into it. They don't do enough of that because they're so afraid to hurt someone's feelings or something.
There's so many great stories going on in the pits. There's so many badass privateers in the pits that we don't know. You start watching some of these guys' vlogs. I Brighton Carroll, his vlog is great. The guy's traveling around. Like, give that guy a camera for a week. Give him a crew, put a crew on him for a week, and just follow what these guys are doing. Maybe a couple weeks, and it's just going to be gold. Like Buttery vlogs. Those guys aren't even racers, but you watch it and you go, oh, this is awesome.
And this goes back to what I was talking about with the UFC. They do embedded. They follow these guys. They do all those stuff. Because if you just watch a fight, two guys are two guys. I mean, we've seen fights, but if you know why to cheer for somebody, it sure makes it exciting. And you gotta figure out a way to make people care, to make this thing really entertaining and to go to the next level. And that's what they just don't get.
Yeah.
They don't get it. They're like, oh, it's so exciting, the triples and
Yeah. Look at this guy. Yeah. His van broke down this week, and they had to sleep in a tent on the side of the road and borrow an engine from somebody else. And now he's here, and he's in the last chance qualifier, and he's gonna make it. Like, those are the stories. And I really hate that they don't interview like the LCQ winner, like they used to do with like the semis and shit. Like we should be, you won a race. Maybe it's not a main, it's not a heat, but you won a race. We should get to hear from you. And they're always oh, we don't have enough time. There's just not enough time. Like during Supercross, especially, you're looking at a blank peacock screen for like 20 or 30 minutes collectively. And it's like, if you guys tell me you don't have time one more time, and I keep having to watch I don't even watch the races live anymore because I can't stand the peacock screen.
Yeah. And they sure do sell a lot of infomercials when they could be telling stories. I mean, it's rough, but yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, shit, man. How's real estate going? And we'll get you out of here.
Going all right. We got an open house today. Got my real estate partner, Leanne, over here listening to the podcast.
Oh yeah. So. Hi, Leanne. I hope it was entertaining.
Totally. I loved it. I was smiling the whole way.
Excellent. She'll make fun of me afterwards.
Oh, good. So. Perfect. Have you got your first sale yet, or first deal?
I've got some referral fees and some rentals and stuff. I haven't had a listing yet. Like I said, it hasn't been too long. And honestly, I'm going in a lot of different directions. I sell for Epic Garage Designs. I do the real estate. I get YouTube. Yeah,
you're a hustler,
I got a lot of different angles.
You're a hustler.
I'm trying, man.
I really appreciate that about you. I tried doing the solo videos. I did like 2 of them, and I gave up on it. And I was like, I could do what Cooksey does. I'm fucking good at this shit. I got all the equipment. I might as well. And I did it like 2 times, and it was just like, man, it's harder than it looks. It's a lot harder than it looks. And maybe I'll do the DB thing and write out a script. It's like, I'm too lazy for that.
Yeah, I just throw up an outline, and I kind of know what I'm talking about. Like, I know what I want to say. It's the same stuff, and that's people ask, like, what do you talk about? The things that I think about during the race. I just talk to the camera with them.
Yeah, so, it seems like it would be so easy, but it's not. And you make it look good. So I really
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem, man. I know how hard it is to do this whole thing and how much work it takes. and the dedication. And you're just clearly a grinder. I always appreciate your takes. You know, I feel like you're always well thought out and you're not just letting stuff loose. And I appreciate your content. I've, learned a lot about moto from you that yeah, I think the typical fan just kind of turns on the race for the weekend and turns it off and doesn't really think about it again. And that's why we're in this static position of non-growth for the past 30 years.
And Nick, that's kind of been my goal. Is like, okay, I just want to tell people what's going on. Because when you watch the race with friends that don't watch, once you tell them, okay, this is this, and then they're paying attention. I'm like, well, if I can just do that on my channel, and then people can just touch base. And a lot of the stuff is a lot of my opinions. But when I come out with a story like Glen Helen or X brand goggles, I don't make it up. Those I have facts. I use the investigative journalism when I do that.
I forgot to talk about the X brand, but that's a crazy story. My buddy who got a new bike, I almost told him to buy X brand goggles. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, seriously, send them over to Ride Strap.
Yeah, I did actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right.
But yeah, no, that I'll just say this, like the lifeblood of our industry is tracks. These guys that sell products to people who ride at tracks, for one of them to sue this is just unforgivable to me.
Yeah, it's terrible. And the tracks are so important. The last thing, and then we'll get you out of here. I grew up Northern California. My favorite track up there was Turlock, Oatfield Raceway. And I have this vision of it in my head, how it used to be. There's all these deep ruts and big bumps, and it's just a gnarly track. So I went on the internet a couple months ago to just kind of see what it looked like today. And it was like a freeway. And they're showing all these vet races and shit. And I go, oh, man, it's gotten so bad that they're not back. The AMP GFI North series back then was serious. Like they were grooming people for Loretta's. Like it was a serious fucking series. And now I think the money, inflation, prices have all gone so crazy that they're not targeting that group anymore. They're just targeting vet riders. So I had to search like 10 years back to find the track that I remembered. At first I was like, man, my memory's fucked. I don't even remember the track I was riding. But, it's a sad state that they're in.
I don't know, man. I don't mind. When I go to Mesquite, when I live kind of pretty close to the RMX series that puts out a lot of the top pros from Utah, and they prep their tracks to get them ready for a national. And when they have practice days and they put that they're like ripping it deep, you won't catch me there.
Oh, I guarantee I wouldn't be a fan of it now either. All right, man. I'm planning on getting a bike next year, so maybe we'll see each other at a track someday.
That's a pretty sweet ride right behind you, though.
Yeah, my Buell. I bought this bad boy in San Francisco. This thing, I love this bike. I'll never sell it. It's a work of art.
Nice.
I've got it set up. Awesome. I've got a Recluse torque drive in it, so I can run it. Yeah. And I've got this cool setup that I can't reach right now, but I've got like a receiver hitch that bolts onto here, and then I've got like the hitch that goes onto my arm, so I can move around.
Very cool.
We'll see. Hopefully, I'll see you around the track someday. All right, man. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Nick.
No problem.
Yeah, I appreciate it, brother.
Anytime you ever want to come on, if you've got something you want to get off your chest and don't want to put it on your channel, I'm here for you.
You got it, Nick.
All right, man.
Later.
See ya.